Thanks for the opportunity. Basically, Bunawad was launched in February 2018, but what led to the foundation kind of happened in January 2018. So I was vacationing in Run of Kutch, and I have always had a love for textiles and crafts. And I had heard of this village Ajrakpur, which is not very far from the Run of Kutch. It's about an hour and a half's drive. So one of the days I skipped sightseeing, and just like that took a cab and went off into the community. Obviously not knowing anyone. It was basically like a very uh, unplanned kind of a thing, because I didn't know any artisan or weaver, sorry, not weaver, artisan in the community. So I kind of went there and started looking at a few of the workshops that were there. And in this process, I met someone called Ismail Anwar Khatri. So, he is an artisan whose family has been practicing ajrak as a craft for like generations. And when I met Ismail Bhai, it was a very, very different conversation that I had with him. And that got me thinking about the fact that if people really knew the story behind the craft, or how the textile was born, I think they will take more pride. And his story is something that really, really shook me. And the following month, what I did was I took a few days off from work and went into a similar journey into some of the clusters of Bengal. I started off with Fulia, and there I met somebody called Shubhoda. And Shubhoda also had a very similar story of not having direct market access, the kind of struggles, but also a lot of pride in the craft that he has. So, very similar story, east, west. I did a few more clusters in Bengal, and then I realized that somebody had to be telling these stories to the world. I think that would make a real difference, because it is not just a piece of cloth. There is so much of history, so much of a person's entire journey and story associated with it, and that has to be told. And with that thought, started Bunawat in February 2018 as an Instagram page, with obviously the thought that there will be a website soon. And the idea of Bunawat was to be able to really bridge the gap between the last mile weaver and artisan and the end consumer, because the number of changes of hand that happens between a last mile weaver and artisan and the end consumer is numerous. And really wanted to make just this as a one stop and just one entity between the last mile artisan and the consumer. And also to talk about a lot of the storytelling around the craft, the community, and kind of create a blog where people could read up about the community. So with that intent, I started Bunawat in February 2018. I think you have mentioned it in the question itself and very rightly identified. The intent of starting Bunawat was to really work with communities. I do not have a design or a fashion background. I have an inherent love for textiles, and that led me to a lot of research. But in all of this, in all of my last engagements, I have always worked with communities for a really long time, like over a decade. And therefore, when I was even starting out Bunawat, while the initial format was of curating and working with weavers and getting their wares to the market, community has been the core of Bunawat's work, to really work for them, with them. And therefore, one of the most important values at Bunawat that we describe is community. And in this regard, one is obviously working with communities and working with absolute last mile weavers and artisans, and helping them kind of bridge the gap and giving them market access, while the other aspect of working with community is also working for them, basically for their development. And when I I don't use the word empowerment because I think they are very, empowered in terms of their skill set. I think it's more about enabling them, and therefore, when we talk about enabling, I think the core of it is around developmental initiatives on upskilling. We've been doing a lot of these kind of developmental initiatives in clusters, and so that it is not just the weaver or the allied workers, but the community as a whole has and is impacted in a manner that really helps them break the cycle of ignorance and poverty, so that we are able to really make that kind of a sustainable impact. And therefore community is one of the core values of Bunawat. The other value that we really stand by is integrity. I think we are very honest in our dealings with the community and with the customer. I think the way we share information, even regarding the product that we host, we're very mindful about sharing each and every detail, what kind of dyes, what kind of raw materials. We are very open and transparent in that case, and we are very honest when it comes to sharing that, and also with the weavers and the artisans. It's a very honest dealing, and therefore Bunawat's real team actually lies with the artisanal community, because when they see that kind of transparency and that kind of integrity, I think it resonates. So integrity is another important aspect at Bunawat. The third, I would say, also accountability. I think we are very accountable for the action that we take, and we are accountable also as a brand towards the environment at large. I think that is why we've been really focusing on raw materials which are natural, working with dyes which are environment friendly. So we are really responsible and accountable as an organization, and that reflects in our supply chain and in our operations. Also accountable for our actions with the customer, or with our weaver community and artisan community at large. The next one that I would like to add as a value is empathy, and I think that really helps working with communities and working with people who are different from the urban setup in a way, because we are empathetic, we understand, and we really get into their shoes when it comes to any kind of work that we're doing or any kind of developmental activities that we do in the cluster. So that feeling of oneness is very important. So that is there. This is a recent value, and I've been reading a lot, and I think this is something that we recently added. But the other value that we stand by and we are really focusing on is excellence. We really want to excel in the kind of work that we do, whether it comes to our product quality, our design, or our last mile logistics, the overall customer experience, whether it is the user interface on the website or the way we deal with customer, and also obviously with our back end, excellence. And that also puts the onus of creating an excellent workspace with the team, the kind of, and all of these integrity with the team, empathy with the team, all of it, because the team is what makes Bunawat strong. So I think when we talk about Bunawat, these are the 5 core values that we stand by. Just repeating it for your ease: community, integrity, accountability, empathy, and excellence. I think I'll just mention Ismail Bhai's story. I think that basically set the context for Bunawat. So like I mentioned, when I was in Ajrakpur, I met an artisan, and his name is Ismail Anwar Khatri. And when I met him, he was in his workshop, and he told us about the story that his father had been printing the Ajrak saris and would get ₹2 for each sari, and they really went through a financial crisis, and it was not enough to support the family, and therefore Ajrak Bhai had to leave for Mumbai, and where he worked for a good 9 years in a store there. working and supporting the family, his brother's education, sister's marriage, all of that. And they had closed down the workshop, and his father was absolutely against restarting the Ajrak printing workshop. But in all of this time, what really played on Ismail Bhai's mind was that there were these blocks that are over 200 years old, and I have kind of also witnessed those blocks and held them. So I know what he's talking about. It was very emotional when he was talking, narrating his story, and he said that it would really haunt him that that entire workshop was lying there, and those blocks were there, and it was his generational. It was a legacy, and he was not being able to take that forward. So after 9 years, what he did was, one day he just came back home, and with whatever little savings he had, he came up with his. He opened the workshop and printed about 50 saris, and his father stopped talking to him. Okay, because he restarted the workshop. So he printed 50 saris, and he said, I will try this one time. So he went to Mumbai, and by that time he had some already contacts made because he was working there, and he was able to sell off these saris in like real no time. And because his designs were very different, and he was doing something, he used to constantly think and innovate. That gave him confidence. So he came back, he left his job, and he finally said that this is what he would be doing. Now, because of the past history of the financial crisis that they've been facing, his father did not speak with him for about 6 months, and slowly, once they saw that there was some traction, slowly he things started improving for them, and then the craft picked up. And while I say this as a story like this, but when you really hear this from the person who has been experiencing, whose family has gone through so much of crisis because of the poor payment that they would get for the craft, that really makes you think that there is such a need for really bridging that gap and providing the artisans and the weavers a platform that is direct to the consumer, and really work for their overall development. Because we all know that the younger generation today are leaving the craft space, and that's because of the lack of financial stability that the work gives them. And therefore it is very important to really work very closely with the weaving and the artisan communities, and kind of provide them with the right tools and skill set that will help them really not just continue doing what they were doing, but also kind of innovate, kind of be aware of what's happening in the market, and provide them that platform. So but in the process also really understand that there is a generational a history, and that really has to also be at the center of the work. So at Bunawat, what we've done is we've really while we started with curation, and when we were curating, obviously it was easy because we were taking the product, whatever they were weaving, to the market, or weaving, or whatever was the craft form that they were doing. But when we started designing our own, I think for us was that we are very purist when it comes to the craft form. So we really didn't want to dilute the factor or the way the craft or the weave is done. So that remains the same. Only the way the design is, and the color, and the motives, the placement, all of that is something that we really wanted to play with, so that we are able to match that with the market need. So for us, the craft stays true. Just the form in which it is getting delivered to the customer, in terms of the design, that kind of only changes. And because we've been working so closely with the community, I think that has been very, very crucial for us. And because it's not easy to convince somebody who's been doing something for generations to really move out and do something innovative or do something different. But the relationship that we've been able to build with the clusters over time, and also because we have been working very closely with them, that has made a difference. I will also just add one more aspect here, that a lot of time what happens is, the artisans or the weavers, they work, they make a product, but they really don't know what happens to it, or what customer thinks of it. And I think that is why motivation is a very important component, which is so low in a lot of people, that we've seen in the cluster sometimes, because they don't know, for them it's like they're doing, but they don't know what's happening to it. So as a part of Gunavat's community program, what we've done is we've also taken back feedback from customers draping the sari that that the weaver has made, or the craft that the artisan has practiced, and taken that feedback and shown it actually to the crafts person. And that has been phenomenal as a response, to really we've seen, there's this very old lady that we've worked with in Maheshwar, and her reaction, like she literally had tears in her eyes when she was seeing somebody wearing the sari and telling thank you to her for her work and for keeping the heritage alive. So I think there are very there are nuances like these that really make a difference to what. And therefore it's a very delicate balance, like you mentioned. So we are trying to do things like these, which might seem very trivial, but could have profound and lasting impact in the minds of the craftspeople. And therefore, like I said, it's a very very smooth relationship. Thankfully, it has been with the artisan, and we are kind of challenging them to do things differently. But glad that the result has been great so far. And in all of this, the craft stays in its pure form. So we're not in any way diluting that. We are just making changes in the design aspect of it. So while we started out with curation, we realized that there isn't enough market feedback that goes back to the crafts people, and that is why they continue to do similar things year over year. But it's very important that you really map the market need and the requirements to ensure that you are making something that has a wider appeal or a global appeal. And sometimes I've personally heard a lot of people say, when you think of handloom, you think of really boring clothes, but it isn't so. I mean, as a country, we have been following some amazing craft traditions and textile traditions over the years, and we have immensely talented craftspeople who can do wonders when it comes to craft. They are extremely talented, and like I always say, weaving is as much of an art as it is science. So we have so much of talent already existing, and therefore it is very it's not difficult at all, I would say, to be able to look at what the market demands, what the global requirement is, what is happening across all over the world, and kind of take back that input and ensure that our weavers are making things like those. Therefore, at Gunavat, like I always say, that we do not dilute anything in the craft form. So whether it is somebody is weaving something, so that remains the same. We've been very mindful about using eco-friendly materials. We've been mindful about using natural fibers, all of that. Whatever was hand block printed still continues to be. So the craft form has not diluted at all. It is just how the color combination to the motives, the overall design, the aesthetics, the entire look and feel, depending on the different seasons, depending on what will work when. So we are trying to play on those aspects without in any way hampering or tampering in any way the craft format. So that remains absolutely the same. And when you go back to the community and give them the feedback, and they also initially, while they're a little hesitant in trying something new, but over time they realize, and when they see that that what they've done in terms of of a new product is getting the market acceptance, and obviously they're getting reorders for the same, then obviously it is very, very motivating for them to be able to try different things. So and I would say now it is also very fortunate to have had an audience that is global, and there are a lot of times that customers have themselves asked for different customizations, which have obviously added to the product. So I think it's been a very two-way kind of sharing, and also we have to be mindful that whatever we always do in terms of a design on paper, sometimes when we take it back to the cluster, the weaver or the artisan themselves give a lot of feedback, what is possible, what would look good. So a lot of times it's also a co-creation together, because the actual design also might undergo changes when it is actually being rendered. So it is a sharing learning experience, is how I would like to put it. And therefore working with the communities on new designs have been a wonderful learning experience. And with every new thing that we are trying, it is a lot of learning that we are taking back. So when we moved on to designing our products, some of the core principles that we stood by, obviously the first one being responsible as a brand. And when I say responsible, it means responsible towards the people who are making it, responsible towards the environment, and also responsible towards the people who are buying it. So we've looked at absolutely natural fibers. We've looked at eco-friendly dyes. When we looked at our packaging, we wanted to reduce our carbon footprint. There also we've looked at more reusable packaging. We have been mindful of the entire process, from the design, the product getting into production till it is getting delivered to the customer. So it has been a very thoughtful process in that sense. The second thing that we looked at when we were looking at design is that it has to be timeless. We are investing in clothes that should be able to have a longer life, because we are spending on investing into good quality material, right? And you're paying a value for it. So we would want the customer to wear it for long, so that the product can be passed down to generations, because this is like an investment, is what we feel. So we just the opposite of fast fashion. We want people to really rewear, reuse our products, and therefore we wanted the designs also to be timeless. While obviously there is a contemporary interpretation, but at the end of the day, the craft form is again very, very traditional. And so we've kind of very beautifully blended the two. It's a beautiful amalgamation of the modern and the traditional format. So that has been the second aspect. And the other aspect, like obviously sustainability, like I said, when it comes to core, that sustainability has been the core of the work that we do. And I always maintain this, that the degree of sustainability varies across the different clusters that we work with. In some clusters, we are able to work with organic cotton, we're able to work with handspun yarns, we are able to work with natural dyes, while in some clusters we are able to work with maybe say azo-free dyes, or maybe mill spun but cotton. But we are very, very focused that we will not work with anything that is not a natural fiber. We will not work with anything that is not an eco-friendly dye. So there are certain standards that we've set, and at the end of the day, we also care about the people who we work with, that is our weavers and artisans, and we always pay them whatever is their due. And we've never really bargained around this. That is something that we stand by as a principle. The other aspect I want to highlight here is that how do we make this, and this is very interesting because we've been exploring this. Generative AI is taking over the world, and people are talking about its pros and cons, right? But what we've tried to do in Bunawat 2.0 is really look at how generative AI could really help us come up with designs that are smart, that are elegant, and at the same time can be implemented using the traditional format. So what we've done is we've taken inspiration from certain design patterns that we were able to generate through AI, and artificial intelligence has been put to good use. So we take little format from there, and obviously the same cannot be rendered as is, so we kind of then extrapolate it or render it depending on what is feasible in a particular cluster based on the craft form we want to experiment, and we are then using that inspiration in a more meaningful way to create something that is exclusive, obviously never seen before. It's very unique. It is again very different, visually very different and appealing, but having fulfilled all the or maybe having fulfilled all the criteria of the true craft form. So we're not diluting the craft form, but again we're using generative AI to really help us with some designs. So some of our designs, if you look at what we are doing right now, are very different from the way things have been going on or what the clusters are used to do. So we've really tried to capture the absolute newest bit of technology and try to use that to help our cultural heritage take a different form altogether through the rendering it through the purest form of crafts. So that is what we are doing, but in all of this, again, like I mentioned, obviously we are looking at something that is unique, something that is timeless, something that is responsible and sustainable, and anybody who's owning a Bunawat should feel proud to be owning it, and it should be able to start an interesting conversation and should be able to be passed down generations. So that's what our thought process around design is for Bunawat 2.0. Bunawat, for Bunawat, stories have been the core of the work that we do, and that is why tagline also goes as stories and weaves. Storytelling is very crucial. Because I myself, I was moved by the stories that I saw in the cluster. My team also, when they traveled, the kind of stories we heard, and we felt that once we come back and share these stories with our customers, I think they will also resonate well, and they will also take pride in knowing who made their clothes. So who made my clothes, the fashion revolution is not like a one-time activity for us, but for every design, every product that we are creating, we try to communicate to our customers who is behind it, what kind of work goes into it. I think then you appreciate the value of something that you're buying, and then you connect with it, because when you're picking up a piece of garment, there's so much of a story. It is somebody's hard work and effort, and that goes with it. And I think it's beautiful, because once the customer is able to really associate, I mean they've helped us. We've done a lot of crowdfunding during COVID or whenever we've done developmental initiatives, and our customers have come forth and supported and kind of funded so many of our programs and funded all of these work that we've done during COVID, is because they resonate with it. They know that we are accountable where the money is going. So I think they have a they have that connect, because these are real stories of real people that they are sharing, and therefore I think it's very important that you have that kind of transparency, because today consumers are very conscious. They have a lot of choices now. It is very important that they see your transparency, they see you as a brand that is authentic, because moving from one brand to another today is very easy, but what makes them stick is basically how they align with your core values, how they align with your work, with your transparency. So I think that really helped and worked for us, and it is two-way, right? We've also gone and shared customer stories with the weavers and the artisans, and that has motivated them, seeing their product and seeing that. So it's been a very two-way kind of a storytelling for us, and therefore I think it's very important that the stories are true. It's not just stories, but they're true stories, because after a certain time, if it's not a true story, it'll come through. Also, whenever we talk about the artisan or the weaver community, we always mostly, I would not say always, but mostly associated with a lot of poverty and sadness and issues. But there is also the happy side to it. There's so much of skill, there's so much of talent, there's so much of imagination, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to come up with such amazing products. So I think that is also an important part of the storytelling. While there are challenges, and we know how this segment is affected, but there is also that happy side to them. There is also so much of creativity and so much of skill. So I think we'll also have to talk about those stories. So it's very important that we communicate all kinds of stories. So we try to stick to that kind of a format and that kind of a philosophy when it comes to sharing our stories with our consumers. And this small batch production and going back to doing our own designs, and the shift has been very different compared to the format that we were working earlier with. I think right now what has happened also is that because we are doing very different designs, the weaver is also taking up more time to understand and render it, and therefore we have been able to pay the weaver also more, because our price points have also changed in this. And the weaver is also happy doing something new. The weaver is getting more money than what he or she was getting earlier because of the work that was being done. And definitely that is a very positive step. Also that we are able to therefore do a more mindful collection, because we are doing small batch, we're figuring out what is working, what is not. The weaver is also giving the inputs, and therefore we are, I think, in a better position today to work with the weaver in terms of the financial angle to it. There is also a lot of upskilling that is happening. The weaver is able to learn something new from the work because he is challenging, we are discussing, and kind of also implement this in his or her work elsewhere. So overall there has been obviously the financial benefit, but there has also been a skill based benefit to the weaver, because we've been doing a lot of new things. Like I said, the AI based designs, things that he or she has not done earlier. So overall there is definitely an improvement in their skill set, and also what they're taking back today in terms of a monetary compensation. I think it's a very interesting observation that the transformation that we see is not only at the artisan or the weaver's level, but also at a customer's level. Customers today are really more conscious. They have a lot of choices, they are well informed, they're making more informed purchase decisions. And I think of all of these, what really there isn't like one specific story that maybe I would like to highlight, but when young girls who've started earning, and they're building on their wardrobe, and when they make such mindful purchases, I think that's very, very encouraging, because today they could have easily picked up maybe 5 to 6 fast fashion clothes compared to one hand-woven sustainable clothing that they're picking up. But when they are making that switch and they are being mindful of that, I think that's a big win, right? Because they are the next generation, and they are going to pass down these values, and that's going to have a ripple effect in itself, because this is going out to their friends. They're meeting so many different people, and they are making that change. And these have to be smaller steps. Like, not everybody is going to every time be able to pick up something, but if they are mindful in little things that they're doing, I think that itself adds on. And we've seen that customers would come to us like once, and they were making purchases otherwise have come back again because they feel that the thing has long lasted, the product has lasted long, it's good quality, it's great for the for them, for the environment, for, and then there is also that connect with the consumer, of the consumer with the artisan that they feel. I think their repurchase from us is a testimony that they are liking what they are seeing here, they are connecting with it, and therefore especially when I say that when I see younger people who are just starting out their career and then thinking of their habits changing, I think it's very, very encouraging. That there is also the story that I had to say that there was this young girl and she was in school, and I remember how she was the reason for her mom to buy from us, because her mom always used to say that my daughter is so mindful of this and she wants me to pick this, and then because she wants to inherit things that are more meaningful and that she's able to connect. And I've seen her come to us when she was in school, and today, she's in college, and I see how that journey has been for her to also kind of own pieces of fabric that is more responsibly produced, and also that connect with the community exist. So I think this transformation is taking place. It's not that it is rampant and it's happening everywhere, but yes, there are changes in the positive direction, and I think we as a country definitely we are contributing to a overall broader global shift in the way possible, and the way our hand-woven and handcrafted products have also a lot of global appeal. I think this is all moving in a positive direction. So first of all, I think we should be really proud to be born in a country where we have such immense talent. Our weavers and artisans are extremely talented, very skilled, and have the ability to put into practice about anything that you want them to do. It's beautiful. It's like as artsy as you can imagine, and that can be done. So there is no dearth of talent and implementation at our craftspeople level. But often what happens is the mapping with the market becomes a challenge. Also, that their access to modern technology becomes a challenge therefore. And keeping all of this in mind, we have been really working with a lot of weavers to teach them social media access, create catalogs for them, so that not only us, but they're able to reach out to other brands, other business houses, and kind of use all of this knowledge to reach out to newer markets. And therefore one of our skilling program is focused on teaching them the modern aspects of technology, around social media, around photography, all of these. But truly, I think COVID posed the most difficult challenge for the overall handloom and crafts sector in our country, and it has been surely a very, very difficult time. And I think there is nothing more difficult as a challenge than what we saw during COVID, is what I would like to highlight. And therefore, when I see today the cluster where we were able to do such programs vis-a-vis where we were not, we see a stark difference. People with whom we were able to do skilling workshops, we could see them still sail through the difficult time. And therefore I believe that people like us who are working in the space, the digital literacy is something that all of us in whatever format should be able to be something that we should impart to the communities that we work with, and really handhold them through this, because that is very, very crucial. I think that digital divide, I think, is the make or break for most of the clusters, and that is very important for us to be able to bridge. And there are a lot of good initiatives that are already happening in the clusters, and there are a lot of organizations that are doing good work. But that divide forms a very big challenge for a lot of people, because they don't understand how the modern world or the urban world functions, and they're challenged when it comes to photography skills. They don't know how to respond to queries, they don't know how to understand the market. That access, that overall divide can create. That I think is particularly an important aspect, because there's no problem with the skill set. And I think it's a responsibility for all of us to be able to work, who are working in the space, to work deeply and in a more connected fashion with the weavers, rather than just see them as people who are implementing things for us. So it's a partnership, and all of us can flourish only when all of us can work together, and we are creating value for each other. So I think that is what one should look at, particularly in terms of addressing the challenge in the cluster. This is something I stand by, and I always feel that purpose is more powerful than passion. For all of us working and having our own ventures, we all talk about passion. Entrepreneurs have to be passionate about the work, and there's so much emphasis on passion. While of course passion is important and that is there, but sometimes I feel passion is kind of overrated, because at the end of the day, it is about your sense of purpose. When checks are bouncing, when you're not able to meet customer demands, where then there are issues happening, it is only your sense of purpose that will make you show up the next day. Passion fizzles with time, the moment there are a lot of struggles, and this I'm saying because I've been a second time entrepreneur. I think your sense of purpose, how strongly you associate with the cause, with what you're doing, I think is what is going to really keep you at it. So for anybody wanting to do work, I think identify your sense of purpose even more than your passion. I think that is very, very crucial. And the other thing that I would like to add is that there is nothing more beautiful and nothing more humbling than working with communities. I think they give you so much, they have so much to offer, and the learning that you take back, more than you are able to contribute for them. I think the way they impact you and change you and impact your life and your overall outlook, I think that is very, very beautiful. So always cherish the time and cherish the engagement that one has with the community, because there's nothing more beautiful and special than that.